There we go.
So you aren't even recorded yet?
So just so everybody knows, we've already started and taken roll, and we're moving on to discussions with Board of Trustees with regards to annexation. So at this time, we'd ask for if you would like to introduce yourselves, and we can then start the discussion.
You want us to move into the camera, or do you just want to just stay here?
You can stay wherever you are.
Okay, great. I'm Beth Van Haren. I'm a Bethel Township trustee.
I'm Don Black. I'm a Bethel Township trustee.
Susan Hoke, Bethel Township resident, property owner, and teacher's aide here at Bethel.
Debbie Watson, the fiscal officer.
Andy Earhart, the township administrator and fire chief.
Sure.
Natalie Donahue, community member, and running for this board.
Michelle Frogner, resident on the road.
Anna Dick, candidate for trustee. 40.
Chris Swanson, citizen.
Erin Henry, Bethel staff member.
Michelle Coppock, resident.
All right. Well, Duke Board of Education, as well as the rest of us here, since it's a Board of Education meeting. But anyways, we'd like to, we got a request to have a meeting with the township trustees and their administrative staff with the discussions of annexation.
Okay. Great. Nice. Want me to lead the charge? Andy, you want to do it?
No, you go right ahead. This is your favorite meeting.
So on September 13th, which was Monday, at about 11 a.m., Miami County commissioners were served with a 233 notice of petition for annexation from 3 property owners, 4 parcels, 233 acres that is contiguous with Huber Heights. This is a type 2 expedited annexation, which I can read the rules and regulations if you want me to explain it. Basically, if all the property owners agree and it meets 7 different conditions, that 5 of which are in the petition and 2 of which the municipality agrees to later on, the commissioners have to, by law, approve it. Now, there's been cases where the commissioners don't approve it, and then generally what happens is that the property owners / developer take the commissioners to court. And I'm not sure what the case law on that is for the resolution. So that was on September 13th that Miami County was served. We were served about 1 o'clock in the afternoon with that same petition. And then that night at a city council meeting, Huber Heights was magically ready to sign the resolutions to fill in those last 2 conditions of the 7 conditions that need to be met. So we wrote a letter of opposition on, that was Monday, and we wrote a letter of opposition on Tuesday night, sent it to the commissioners on Wednesday morning, the 15th, and they received it. We sent it also to the city of Huber Heights so that they knew that we were on record as a township opposing this. And some of the reasons that we used, I feel like I'm repeating myself because I'm sure you probably have seen it, but I'll repeat it for the conversation. First and foremost is that it is in our facilities planning area in 2003 and 2004 when we had the first, well, one of the bigger annexations. We did not have any infrastructure, even though that those parcels were in our facilities planning area. There was no way we could service that. So since then, we have sewer and water. Facilities planning area pertains only to sewer, but we have the sewer. We had a meeting in July of 2020 to talk with the developer and Huber Heights and ourselves and Miami County. We have the capacity, which we get from Clark County, to service this area, and we feel like we should be able to do that. And that is what we're hoping to, that's one reason we gave. The other reason was the overcrowding of the schools, and hoping that you guys would chime in with exactly what your concerns were with that. This third reason was the fact that they didn't write an agreement beforehand, but once I read into the law a little bit more, they don't actually have to write an agreement. That's a whole other tax, but that was one of the reasons we used. And then the fourth one was the traffic, over too much traffic on 40, 201, 202. It's going to add, from my conversation with the developer in July of 2020, 600 to 900 units. And because it's cost of the, oh, I'm sorry, do you guys have a note for me or each other or no? Okay, just, anyway, because of the cost of the property, they were hoping that he said he would probably have to do multifamily homes, which is probably even more dense than what we had. So that's, you guys want to add?
Well, so we met with the commissioners.
Yeah.
Or one of the commissioners for that and staff from the county as far as Paul Yule's camp being the filling in for sanitary engineering, not the regular engineering side, and as well as Doug Evans was there. And one of the things they had asked is if we had had any conversations with you folks yet, as far as, how you felt the impact was. I mean, the commissioners are declined. If they can find any reason at all to deny the annexation, they will. But they also need some more ammunition is what they feel. So we had a meeting with them, and then subsequently we've had a lot of stuff going on and wanted to meet with you folks. So that's kind of where we're at here. So.
I'll say something on it. I'm a new lake trustee. I've been there about a year trying to get up to speed on it. Beth obviously has dealt with it for a long time. But we've also been to the last two Huber Heights Council meetings. And there's 8 voting members there. I would say 2 of them is with Bethel residents, okay. Another 1 or 2 maybe, but it's more likely that they're against us than with us at the moment. But we have went to those meetings. The mayor down there, I just always talk how I see things. Kind of a sneaky like guy, looking how he can best make himself look okay, but yet get what he wants. They're going to try to blame it on the Miami County Commissioners. One of the things that Beth mentioned, the rules number 6 and 7, was that night they jumped in and said they could handle it on the providing the water and the sewer and everything. And so at the last meeting this past Monday, they had a motion and a second on the floor, and they ended up taking a vote to rescind that agreement or whatever, that they could provide services. When it was all said and done, it went down 5-3 vote. And the big reason there was the law director, him hauled around a whole bunch trying to tell them, or trying to decide if that was proper for them after they've said they could handle it, to go back and rescind that.
You mean it was a 5-3 to rescind?
No,
No.
5-3, yes, against us.
Against, okay.
Thank you. It's either against or you're against us. I don't have an in between or against us. All right. So I just talked to Don Webb coming up here today, and the law director the other night said he would have the answer Thursday, possibly Friday. Well, his recommendation as of 1 o'clock today was he needs more time to decide whether or not they can rescind that. And some of the council members don't want to vote to rescind it because they're afraid that looks bad, that they said they could provide it. Now they say they can't. They're also looking at the idea of how they could oppose annexation. Again, I think it's all political stunts. If I'm right, the commissioners have to decide this week.
They're voting on the 26th, they told
What day is that?
Next
me,
week.
Tuesday at 9 a.m.
Okay, so we'll see what they're willing to do next Monday night. But I think they're trying to do everything they can to put it off and get our commissioners to okay it. The commissioners can't hardly say no. The law is with the city, not with the township residents. So it's a little bit, it's going to be very interesting. So now, since I'm the newest guy and I'm not very politically correct, as about all of you know, we, as Andy said nicely, we want to know where the school board is with it, because we don't have a clue whether you're for the annexation or against it. And we don't see, the only person that's went to the meetings is Julie. And she makes it a point to tell them she's not there as a school board member, she's there as a citizen. Rather than just the township fighting it, it would be nice if the school board would fight this as well. But maybe you don't want to. You've got a lot of new stuff from all the new residents that come in down there. So we just need to know whether it's all of our fights or is it just our fight?
Yeah.
Was that real plain?
Yeah, easy.
Because I wanted it, but you know, I wasn't sure.
Yeah. So I would just mention, one of the council members is now here, from the Heber City Council. It's on the committee.
Who's that?
Mr. Otto.
Glenn. All right. Now that's a good man right there. That's a good, Glenn, thank you. Good night, yes.
So when we talk about the annexation being for or against, part of our view, right, is we already have a significantly divided community when it comes to the educational environment for Bethel local schools.
Say that one more time.
Currently have a divided community structure when it comes to the school district. In regards to the old Bethel, which would be the traditional farmland homes, to the new annexed area of Carriage Trail, which has dense population. So the old and the new. The problem that we're faced with is if we came out and specifically was against any annexation for the township, that if it went through already, we're worried that we'll identify another group of individuals that would be educated here at Bethel schools, which would be the old Bethel, the new Bethel, and the group that nobody wanted. And so that is one of the fears that we would have, because that would impact the overall educational environment we have here at the school. Two is the facility that we're sitting in was not funded by the residents of the current annexed area. This was, some, but it was well put into place before they had significant growth in homes in that area. This was paid for by the taxpayers originally, from that were already residing in the township. We are
Let me
able.
just clear something up, because I did work on that levy, and Lori, I think you worked on that levy too. And I'm sorry, I haven't formally introduced myself, but you did answer a lot of my emails. When I worked on that levy in 2014, one of the ways that we sold it to all voters was that people in carriage trails would be paying into that levy, and that would reduce the millage over the years. They are paying into that levy, except for that it's tipped. It's payment in lieu of taxes, which heaven knows why the state does that. It's just confusing. It should just be taxes. But that money does go to you. So in a sense, they are paying for this because, or maybe they're just paying for the new school. I mean, you could say that, but you could also pay some of that carriage trails money to pay off this if you wanted to. So, I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying is that their bucket of money didn't go to pay for this building, but you're still getting that bucket of money. They're still paying that 7.98. Is that it?
It was 7.94,
9.4.
probably down to 5 or 6 mils.
No,
6.75.
Yeah, 6.75.
But yeah, it's not correct to say the carriage trails people are not paying for the building, because basically the loan was 35 or 39 years, 37. So that's not really true.
Well,
No.
I think the
So-
point was early on, it was more of the township, and
Correct.
now as carriage.
When it was
trails-
originally placed into motion for this facility was prior to a significant build out.
Oh, okay, I understand. What
That's
you're
my
saying.
point.
I understand.
Well,
what you're
Yeah, not
carriage
that we're not
trails would
paying.
probably have
Yeah.
some.
Yeah,
I mean-
it's moving forward.
Yeah.
in that aspect.
So I have to put things pretty simple, okay? Is this place 100% paid for?
No,
Oh, okay. So when you say it was paid for, that's a bad statement.
thank you.
It will be paid by All.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anyone, it
I just
will
want to help you get
eventually
your
be
story.
paid off by all Bethel local school
Right.
residents,
Right.
which
It
is
will be
the
paid for.
correct. Because it was a 35-year bond measure started in 37, thank you, in 2014 is when it initially voted on.
It was voted on in 2014 and tax would have been collected starting tax 2015.
Yeah. 'cause it
So
was-
now that we've got your story corrected, does that change your idea, Andy, of being with us or against us?
So,
You weren't done yet, though.
no,
Huh?
He wasn't done.
I'm sorry.
You're familiar with the go past your time limit?
With the good thing?
I'm sorry, Don, I had to.
I'm sorry, I thought you was.
no, you're fine. So as we looked at that, they are, right, we are utilizing that bucket of money, not only to help pay our general operating expenses, because we have seen, and it does produce significant number of students for us, which also increases teachers, staff, buses, bus drivers. So we've seen an overwhelming growth in that area since Carriage Trails has really taken off. And almost to the end now. So, where we started out approximately 890 students to today, we're at 1,870-ish students. Now
On campus, off campus.
on and off campus, total students. So we have seen that exponential growth over the last 10 years. We're seeing a growth rate of about 125, 130 students per year coming into the school, and put us at number 4 for the fastest growing school district in the state of Ohio. Now, when you have those issues, we have that happen, it generates several other issues. You can't build fast enough to accept all the students, as well as because the property was originally farmland, and it per acre and the property taxes associated with those aren't actually collected until of any significance until there's actually a house there. As well as we do have a school income tax, so that income tax dollars don't arrive until people are living there, and approximately a year later does it start to actually be collected. So we're seeing students on day one, but the funding associated with that doesn't arrive till 2 to 2.5 years after they entered into the school system, which also creates additional issues for us as well. As we continue, that's why we utilize those TIF dollars for staff and all those other pieces on top of trying to establish facility funding. As we know, as the students continue to grow, the space utilization is obviously very constrained. And so right now, we currently have the school building we're in. We have eight modular classrooms that are on the back of the elementary because of the space issues. We're currently building the new school building that we did not go back to any of the voters for funding on that because we were able to levy the dollars from the TIF, the current TIF.
From the Carriage Trails ticket.
From the Carriage Trails TIF.
Right.
To fund the new K-5.
Is it K4 now, or is it still K5?
We've been calling it the K-5.
K-5, it's gonna have a 5th grade wing built on it. It's gonna look like a traditional K-5.
Oh, I don't know. I just saw online that somebody said that you couldn't.
So the
didn't have the
K-5,
money.
the K-5 building will be constructed with the 5th grade wing, shell of a building. The interior will not be initially finished.
Okay.
And I wanna explain something about the TIF, the TIF part of the pilot that was dedicated to the new construction fund. I've covered this historically, but some people in this room may not have heard this. Back in 2017, November of 2017, the board at the time, the previous board, passed a resolution that 30% of the TIF dollars would go into the new construction fund. Now, keep in mind, the goal of that was to take all of the property tax money, the PI levy, for instance, the bond issue, and all of that money and apply it into a construction fund. That's what that money is for. It's not like they're paying the same amount as a Bethel Township resident. as far as all of their Bethel school taxes. So
Totally.
I want to make sure people don't think there's just this magic pot of money that we're pulling from. That money was allocated so that it would continue to fund permanent improvement and building monies.
30%.
30%.
30%.
And that money was established by, I believe, Tammy Emmerich, because I asked,
Yeah.
well, why don't we do it? She said it's just easier for everybody, probably given we've had now, this is our third treasurer, to just set a fixed percentage amount. And we may have to adjust that over time. I'm not saying it's going to stay 30% long-term. We don't know, because 10 years from now, we may need it for some of it for operating money. But at the time, our greatest need was for construction and building. So that was determined to be a reasonable percentage based on the millage for the TI, the bond, and any other construction related levy. So I just want to make sure that
Nope.
everybody in this room understands that.
I'm
There was
clear on that.
good reason for doing that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I read your treasurer's report, it's very clear in there.
I'd like to say, I'd like to clear one other thing, or just make a statement. Saying that the TIF is paying for the school, that the carriage trails TIF is paying for it, is technically correct. But keep in mind that we did that because that was the best way to get it paid for, that onto the taxpayers. But we have a pool of money, if you will, and that TIF money is one input into that money. So while that money may be paying for the building, that means that money is not going to operating costs and other costs that everybody else is paying for. So I just don't want to start something that says that Carriage Trails is paying for that school, because that's not really how it works. It's really, that's the best way to make the most efficient use of all of our funds, was to take that flexibility of those TIF monies.
I think we were clear on that, yeah.
But I have one question, if I may. So you said the TIF money is paying for the school, but is that the 30% portion only, or is that additional to the 30% portion that was set aside you talked about earlier?
Well, historically, we started collecting it probably the first payment, property tax payment in 2018. So for the first 2 or 3 years, it just collected.
Right,
I think the first draw from it was probably to pay off the land over there. That was something that our
right.
treasurer advised us before building to make things cleaner, was to pay off the land. So I forget what the exact amount was. Tina could probably look that up.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I
But,
understand.
and then from that, the treasurer at our time, Brennan, used the projected dollars from that new construction fund and some of our PI money. I mean, again, it wasn't just that pot that's paying for the building, but we were able to make the numbers work from the with the cops to be able to borrow,
Right.
because we had to say we're going to have the money.
But I guess my question is,
I-
if you limit that to the 30%, so there's
I think
still
it's
70 going
More
forward.
than
more
that.
than
It's more
That
than
was
the
my
30%
question.
that we had set aside. Once we started
Yes, yeah, I'm
the
sorry.
cops.
I'm sorry, yeah.
that was the
certificate,
loan, the
Sure.
certificate of participation. We had to put more than the 30% towards that. I was just asking, I can't recall what we established as what that is. So,
That was my question. So
Yeah.
But
thank
that'll
you.
come from PI funds that everybody pays and stuff. That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
You use the TIF revenue as your collateral. So
Oh,
that's
okay,
what we're
okay.
sort of looking at, you know, but it is the district on the whole
I
is
got you. Yeah,
responsible.
I understand. Yeah, thank you.
And also keep in mind that TIFs have an expiration date. Yes.
Yeah, and when is that?
And we have, well, they're all different.
I
We
believe
have
it's the
4
one
of
for
them.
Carriage Trails, I believe, which was originally Benchrock is 2034, I believe.
Okay.
It might
So
be
you have-
2035 based on tax year, because remember.
So
they're
about
always
14 more
collected
years
a
at your
year
earliest,
behind.
and then
So
most of them
I-
are 30-year TIFs,
yeah,
so.
it's sometime around 2034, but I'm not I'm
Sure.
sorry, I don't know.
No, no, it's
We'll know in 15 years.
Well, like for the newest stuff getting now, you're out till 30 years from now on the.
No, the TIF for Benchrock was established in 2004. It expires in 2034. So no, none of this, unless there's a new, like Parktown Apartments, different story.
So
was
if
established
looking at the
recently.
TIF agreements that we got from Huber Heights,
Mhm.
as they do different sections, they establish new TIFs.
Right, like Parktown Apartments will have a different date, but Carriage Trails was all part of Benchrock. That was established in 2004. If
so
they-
they all changed it. Yes, some are 2034, some are going to be 2036.
But-
You usually have a rolling 30.
Correct, that's what I was
Yeah.
getting at. So your first one would be done in 2034, maybe. Their next one might not be for 30 years from today.
Correct.
Right. So it's not when they established them as they do different parts of that subdivision.
But I want to be careful, any growth in carriage trails happens, it will expire in 2034, even if the house goes up today in carriage trails, that expires in 2034.
Oh, yeah, that was just different than the paperwork we got, that was starting new ones for different sections.
Yeah.
So in other words,
Those may not have been the school TIF,
Could
those
be.
could have been
It
the
could be.
TIFs for.
I don't know,
what they
like
were
a
doing
new
with the-
so for the paperwork we got, just to give you an example, Section A would be expiring in 30 years. Then 5 years later, they start Section B. That one's then 30 years.
Okay,
So that's what our paperwork looks like that we got. It could be totally different from
I
that.
think ours was the whole thing.
Yeah, we
like
got
30
a
years
full
on.
package, so
Okay.
it may be handled differently at the auditor's office, but if
Sure.
it is, Tina, will you look into that? 'Cause that's
just made a note.
That would be great for you, so that would continue the financing.
That would
Yeah.
be great. for
That's
us.
why I was asking.
Yeah, that's not my understanding, but that would be great for us if that's true.
Tina, I have the agreement, I'll forward it to you.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
So, but with that and the bond of the school, last year and a half ago, we were able to refinance that bond, which reduced the overall payment for the entire district to the tune of around $3 million.
Yeah, 3.1 million.
3.1
We just
million in
made our
reduction.
last payment on that,
Yeah.
so.
So we did
Funded.
reduce the
Yeah.
overall tax amount by $3.1 million. As well as when we look to the facility side, going into the ELK project or the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, and what percentage we were able to lock in and not. We chose to wait because there was a 26% share by residents and a 74% share by the state of Ohio. We waited for the new projections because our new enrollment numbers would go in, which rotated us to a 20% township share and an 80% state of Ohio share. And then we're able to lock that in. And I think based on our 78 point something $million project that we have established, was another $3 and something $million savings to the township as well.
Yes.
So
To the school district.
to the school district, yeah, but to the town, to our.
Well, to
school
township
district.
and.
Yeah.
To the people.
All of us, yeah.
To the people.
So all of that's, a lot of it, we already understand, get a little different view of it here and all. But if the annexation goes through, you're going to continue to grow at 100 to 150 kids per year. Is that what the school board wants? Because that's going to be about a 10-year build out. So you're talking somewhere 900 to 1,500 more kids. Is that what the school board wants?
I think I'll let the rest of the board speak as well, but we are here to educate kids. The growth rate at 125 to 150 per year is not a sustainable growth rate for us. That presents a lot of challenges because we can't build fast enough. It takes us 3 years to build a building. And so we're working on the first building and, we know that we're probably 6 to 7 years out from getting pulled into that Ohio Facilities construction plan to start building out the rest of what we've projected as our numbers.
So if you're saying that it's not, you can't handle that, then
I'm not saying we can't handle it. I'm saying that is not what we would want,
okay.
that growth rate.
So
If
then
it
can
is
we
that
say
growth
you
rate,
are against the annexation?
so if we do have that growth rate, I mean, there's other things we can do here to try and facilitate it, i.e. more modular units, more trailers, other construction efforts that we can do to sustain it, right? So when we look at that, we are not saying that we can't handle it. If you're asking our opinion, my opinion is that the growth rate is the issue, not the number of students.
Correct. Because the growth rate will tell you how many students you got. I mean, we can do the math. I graduated from Bethel, so I can do the math on that. But you know what I'm saying? You're being politically correct and speaking real nice, but you're not saying what we need to hear. We understand all of these things and we're looking for some help.
Well, I think to be clear.
And you
though,
want
it's-
us to be the bad guys and you don't want any part of it. You want to set neutral.
Negative. So, well, number one, I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. So I'm here to speak what I think is most appropriate for our educational environment here as Bethel local schools. Do I think that with annexation, will we have a lot of issues? Yes. I think there's some major issues that need to be addressed before annexation should be approved. Some of those issues are very significant and take a lot of time. Look at the infrastructure for 40 and 201 and 202. I'll come to you. You can put your hand down.
Okay, thank you.
That road is not set up for us to have a safe environment for us to be transitioning there with our school buses as well as another 1,000 cars on the roadway. It's just not sustainable.
Correct.
Up to 2,000 cars, really, right? 2 per household. Not knowing how many people be living in the multifamily units or apartment. But that roadway is not capable of sustaining that, as well as 201 and 202. I mean, just drive, and this isn't even a carriage trail issue, but just drive on 202 over to 70 at any time between 3:30 and 5:30. You know how long it's going to take you to get to Rural King? A long time, because the infrastructure wasn't put in place ahead of the road. So those are the issues that we see as very significant for us, that those should be addressed prior to approving an annexation.
And we 100% agree with everything you said. That's why we have opposed it and used those exact, almost word for word excuses. We would like to see that from the school board.
Right. We are stepping through the most appropriate language to put forth as a resolution to the county commissioners prior to their vote. We have had lots of conversation with regards to this and specifically addressing the infrastructure of the roadways, appropriate turn signals, width of roads for us to safely transit our students and staff to and from the school is number one. Number two would be as any way that the growth would be controlled. So for example, I believe the county permitting department works for the county commissioners. So can they reduce the number of permits that are issued per month or per year? So that would be one of the things that we would ask that needed to be put in place prior to them approving annexation is how can they reduce the overall growth rate to the school so that we can sustain and maintain appropriate facilities with the growth as it's coming. Those are the two primary. The third is, we had 3 specific ones: growth, infrastructure. I'm losing my train of thought.
Is there some?
Growth, infrastructure, and the third part was about the kind of correlated with the growth piece was the amount of time it takes for us to build facilities.
Mm-hmm.
And so trying to explain that out, that if there is a lot of students coming rapidly, we will be putting trailers out. The problem that we're faced with is that we are not going to come out and say that we can't handle the students, whether it's annexed or not. So the problem with that.
Yeah, I don't think we ever asked if you could handle or not handle.
He clearly
second
just
what-
did, but
Well, I'll second what Don said, which was, you're stating the same things that we stated in our things. Our schools can't handle that rapid of growth.
but you didn't know that at the time. It was your own assessment of that because we hadn't assessed that.
Well, I asked one of your teachers for how you are overloaded, and she sent me a list of 8 modulars and that you'll be built out. You'll be full with by 2023, and I don't know, kids were everywhere, I could read exactly what she sent me, but so I made the assumption, you're right, you didn't tell me that, but I made the assumption based on that information that you are already going to, and what she said was you're already going to be at capacity. And that was one of our requests, was to slow this build out.
Right, and so one of the issues with us saying that we can't handle the students is it does allow the opportunity for Heber City Schools to consume that area as their school district as well. Which then also puts us at risk for a petition to redistrict the current carriage trail in Parktown into the Heber City Schools District when we make the statements that we can't handle the students. And so we're not willing to take on the risk of that.
Right.
We are having a meeting next week because of the way it was interpreted at previous city council meetings. We have a meeting with the legal team and the superintendent of Heber Schools next week with regards to, my guess is their first step in initiating that process.
Okay.
To be fair, anything we say can be interpreted that we're saying we cannot handle the students, whatever we say.
Say that again, I'm
To
sorry.
be fair, anything we say can be interpreted, construed as though we cannot handle the students. It doesn't matter if we're saying infrastructure. It could always be interpreted that way.
So
So
I
we're
asked-
kind of-
yes,
My concern is mainly as a property owner. I like what you said about the roads, because I had thought about that too. The roads just can't handle much more. About 10 years ago or so, I was informed along with other property owners on Flick Road and at that end of 40 because of flooding. The culvert system, the drainage system could no longer handle us. And the field that I own, about 1/4 of it got flooded every year, which of course killed crops. Other farmers were affected, homeowners were affected because their yards were saturated and looked almost like swampland. At the time, I believe we met with Miami County engineers who came and helped us. We met several times, all of us. And if I remember correctly, the final decision was that something on the Guessman property had to be done and they weren't willing to do it. And so all the property owners who were meeting at the township decided that we would collectively pay for whatever drainage could be done to help us. And I have noticed that in the last few years, because that one house at the end of Flick, where they have the willow tree, it used to get very wet in their yard, and I haven't noticed it getting super wet. I know of another lady a little bit further down on 40, but not far from Flick Road, still has major water buildup in her ditch. I haven't noticed as much in my field. I don't know so much about other people, but it helped. So my concern, and we were told by the Miami County engineers at that time that for every house that's put in, I can't remember the percentage, but it takes away when the rain falls into the ground, it runs off instead of going into the groundwater.
correct, watershed.
And so we end up with flooding. So my question too is, what are they doing, or what will they do? What's the plan? Is there a plan, to alleviate this situation, or is it just going to be building and then, okay, we'll take care of that problem if it happens, if there's flooding issues, or things like that?
Good question, but not in this. This is not the meeting to answer that question.
Okay,
So,
But that is a
that's
definite
Miami
concern.
County question or the county.
Yeah, that went through Miami County Soil and Water, so we did that.
was that
who
what
we
it
did
is?
the
I couldn't
dissertation
remember.
with, yeah. And so, as with any new development, they'll require to do some drainage plans and stuff. We haven't seen any of that yet, and neither has anybody, because it's just, and it's in the.
Too early.
Too early,
Mhm.
but they're gonna have to address that. That ditch does run down go across under basically where that barn is
Underneath, yeah.
and on the Hosford property and go out to a ditch that runs across the Getchlin's property.
Yeah.
So that'll have to be addressed somewhere in their plans.
Okay.
But we don't know what that is, and we'll have to work with Soil and Water to make sure that's maintained for you guys.
Okay,
See,
thank you.
go ahead, David.
Okay, so I think all of you know that I also was on the school board for 8 years. So, you know, my passion is both there and with the township. So, and I understand you don't want to say that you can't handle any of the new growth. I understand that thought process. But when you say that, I need clarification. Are you against school district lines? Are you against doing that? Because then the obviously the money or TIF, whatever, would not be coming to the school. And without that TIF money, and I understand how the buckets go, I understand fund accounting, I understand all that. But without that TIF money, you would not be able to have done the things you have done to move forward, to, you know, accept all the students and the growth. So I just want to understand when you were making your statement, one of the reasons you're hesitant to support and say, we don't want the annexation is because you don't want to redistrict school lines and you want to keep that money coming in?
So
I'm just trying to
the
understand.
redistricting of school lines is not a Bethel local schools decision.
No, I understand. It has to be through the state, but it has to, Huber has to agree with it. Both schools have to agree with it.
There's like a 28 question document that you have to go through and thoroughly answer.
Both schools do not have to agree with it.
No, we did not.
Our Department of Education will decide redistricting of schools, not Bethel local schools or Heber City schools.
But the issue, I'll get to you. Hold on. Okay?
We're touching on all the little things that go with my question.
Yeah.
Fine.
So it's really not about the money, to be honest, right? We know that a significant number of people have moved into Carriage Trails and Parktown just to come to this school and be part of what they thought originally was Bethel Township. I think there was a unique
Yes.
marketing strategy there.
We
all know
Thought
that.
they were moving into Bethel
They
We
Township.
know what the
Right,
salespeople
and
did.
they ended up moving into the city of Huber Heights, but they were in our district. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so we know that redistricting is going to create another problem. If there is a redistricting if it was to happen, right, then they're just going to try and create a new dense populated area somewhere else that resides more here versus there. And so we know that'll come. We also know that it's really hard for them to redistrict Carriage Trail and Parktown right now because that would be one of the violations of the 28 rules, which would be construed as a tax grab. 1, 2, though, is the current proposed annexed area. Since nobody lives there, majority of those rules don't count. So they could just reach in and grab that 233, and what they then would be able to do is work backwards to redistrict backwards so that their district connects versus an island. And so that's what we're trying to protect.
Can I piggyback on that real quick?
Hold on one second.
Okay.
Give us a-
What you just said is exactly what the majority of the residents out here in this township would like to see happen. They want them to work backwards and take back that portion of Carriage Trail and the vacant farmland at this point. They don't want to see their community life destroyed by massive build outs. That's not what they want. And I understand the TIF. I understand the workings of the Board of Education because I was on it for 4 years. And Carl Bowman and Don Whitaker had the same mentality that you all are setting up there with right now. Is those are Bethel kids, because the majority of the people, like you said, bought into that development thinking that that was a Bethel Township property. And it's not, it's a Huber Heights property. And the majority of us out here in the rural township look at it as a Huber Heights property. You're never going to get the cohesiveness that you seek when you put another subdivision in Carriage Trace. It's not going to be as cohesive and a one-on come together kind of kumbaya thing. It's always going to be the rural township and the subdivision over there on Carriage and Trail. So
Either you want to side with the subdivision on Carey's Trail, or you want to side with the people here in this township who want their life to remain as it is, rural, country, couple acre lots, they're fine with that. They understand that for the most part, change is coming, but it doesn't have to be as drastic as that. And you're at a pivotal point here right now. You control this. You, the five of you, can put a stop to this by simply doing what they've asked you to do, is say you side with them, the township trustees. This is not a good thing for Bethel Township. It isn't. And if you don't do that, we will be Huber Heights #2 here. This will be a Division I school in a very, very, very short time. And I think all of you know that.
So, thank you for your opinion.
It's not an opinion, it's a
It is.
fact.
No,
It's
it's
a
an
fact.
opinion. It's yours. It's not mine.
Well, I'm here.
In that
because-
aspect. So to clarify, right? It does. I would say that we are not the pivotal point in the township that makes the decision whether the current old township residents get this or the new school district students get this. We don't get to decide that. But what we are stuck with every day, I shouldn't say stuck with, blessed with, is the fact that we educate all the students that come to this school. 100% of the time, every day, we're here educating those students that come to our school. That is our #1 goal. It does not matter the difference between old and new, those and them, none of it. It's about our requirement to educate students that come here. So,
I just want to say, we don't want to be adversarial with you guys. We know all of you, you are our neighbors, you are our friends. That really wasn't what our intent was in any manner, shape, and form. I just don't want to go to the next Huber Heights City meeting and say you are overcrowding our schools if I don't have some type of backup from the school board that says slow the growth and the traffic's crazy. That would be perfect, but I don't feel like it's my role, or actually not even role. I feel like that's not a very, a strong argument if I don't have some support from, or we don't have some support from the school board that says, you don't have to say no more kids ever, because we know that's not realistic, but just what you said, and we the school board, slow the growth so we can catch up and keep Bethel schools the great school that it is. It's hard to teach when you're just getting new kids in all the time. I get that. I'm sure everybody else gets that too. I mean, it's hard to figure out. I'm not looking for you to like pound your fist and say, no more, never again. I really just want some backup at the next time I go to the school, to the city council meeting that says, the school also said, slow the growth. We can handle it if you slow it down. And that's all I'm wanting, really. I respect your position. It's difficult, it's hard. We get that. It really is. And I'm not coming here looking for, come on, do it my way, because it's not my way. It's got to be workable. So if that's what you can give, which is slow the growth and the traffic is crazy, we'll take it. That'd be awesome.
we want to control growth, the growth rate, and we would want the infrastructure in place to sustain safe
Fantastic.
travel of our school buses with our students.
Great.
That's our concern, significant.
And that would be hugely helpful if you would put that in a statement and sign your names to it.
We're working on that
Monday the
to pass a
25th.
resolution for that.
Okay, fantastic.
We're working on that.
Fantastic.
Monday, we have a meeting with our attorney to get that information so that we can pass an appropriate resolution prior to
Right.
the commissioners' votes.
I would love that. That would be great. Thank you.
Monday, the 25th at 7:00, right?
Yeah, I think they have a meeting that same night.
Oh. Wow. We needed you 5 there.
No,
We don't have a meeting this Monday.
oh,
The
okay.
25th?
Never mind then.
We had a meeting at the last.
I was gonna say, I
the
didn't
last
think
one.
you did, but I wasn't.
Next month.
I wanted to say too, I have voted for every Bethel school levy, and I will continue, and you haven't asked me to put a sign in my yard. I'd love to have a sign in my yard.
I've got one
I
in my
will-
car. I can give it to you.
I will support you guys till the day I die, And I don't want to make you mad, but I always tell everybody the difference between a friend and a good friend. A friend tells you what you want to hear. A good friend tells you what you need to hear. And that's why I'm here. So with Beth, I don't want you to think I'm against you, but I am passionate about this subject. We would like to see you at that meeting and make some kind of a statement and let us know where we're at, because Glenn down there, Richard Shaw, and maybe one other guy is all at the moment that's in our corner. And we need that. We need just enough to get 1, 2 more people in our corner. And we don't want you to say you can't do it, but you know you can. But if it's slowed down, you can do a better job.
That's the point I wanted to make too. The other thing I forgot, as a resident and as a property owner, I know that this is not a rural community anymore. Our farms have been divided. I mean, just on Dayton Brand alone, and now on 202, we've got 3 or 4 new houses there. That used to be farmland. So I know it's changing. But this rapid growth is just not, like you said, sustainable. It's like, you know, we can do it. Yeah, we can do it if we have to. But it's not good for the community. It's not good for the people who live here. It's not good for the students. It's not good for the staff, and it's not good for you, because it's like we're always playing catch up, and we get caught up, and then there's more coming at us. And it's just, development's going to happen. I'm not against that, because like I said, we're no longer a rural community. But it doesn't have to be where houses are packed in like sardines. It should be reasonable development.
Thank you. And I would say that looking into the future, we did a really hard look 3 years ago, and continuance from that 3 years with our facilities committee. We looked at what we thought the school was going to be like in 10 years. We stepped it out 10 years. Just looking at all the available farmland, because we know that we have growth in several other areas other than this annexed property or carriage trail. We know that a lot of farmland is moving out to residential homes, splitting the lots and building out. So we tried to take a maximum look at what we thought potentially could be in our school district. And I wanted to say by 2038, so we take it out to 38.
30, the numbers are lying projected. I would say about 20, well, yeah, I probably went that far, but about 2032, about 10 years from now is when we hit about 3,000 students. Wow. Based on, so the 120 to 130 kids that we've been getting has not been the whole carriage trails time. It's been about the last 5 years. So, and you know, this is part of the reason we have issues with the state and their projections, because they have a specific formula that looks back 10 years and takes in birth rates and all this other stuff that, you know, it doesn't apply to our situation. So if you look at the last 5 years and the fact that carriage trails 2.0, if you will, is going to happen at the same rate, there's going to be not the same ramp up time. So what we've been told is it would be uninterrupted. We would probably still see 120 to 130 kids a year. Now, there may be a little delay in there because I think that they thought they would get that land last year. So, you know, there's been some time pass and they're a little farther along carriage trails, but they've got everything there. They're just going to move up the road, right, and keep going. So based on what he had told us about they expect it to be the same mix, the same kind of units and density that carriage trails is, and at the same rate of 120 to 130. So I think it was 700 single family homes plus maybe some senior living and some apartments. So it would be roughly the same. Right now, I think it's producing just about 1 student per house, a little over maybe, based on what they're selling and how many come here So that's probably going to be another 900 students as they start building that. Carriage Trails will ramp down, Carriage Trails 2.0 will ramp up. So yeah, by 10 years, it'll probably be about 3,000 students. And we don't know what other development will happen in that time. And of course, there's no assumptions in there. It's just completely based on the trend. So there's no consideration for, if the economy tanks or, 100 other things can go wrong, right? But so that's just strictly based on the trend that we see today and where we'll be based on that trend.
And so that's why we tried to look at our facilities master's plan when we were looking to lay that in place, was to have the facilities already pre-planned for the continued growth at those rates. Now, the state doesn't agree with us because there's more people that are dying than are being born. It's their primary rate. So
In Ohio.
In the country.
yeah, in the country. Yeah.
How about in Ohio? How about in this area?
It's lower than the national average. I believe based on the report that we had, you want to rate, and ours is like 2.1%. So that's why we're saying that we anticipated it happening,
Yeah.
whether it's there over off of 571, Palmer, all those other places. We were trying to do our due diligence and focus on what we thought could be a potential in our plan. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Do you have the numbers from years ago? How many students went to this school?
I got it.
Mhm.
I'm gonna say like Dan and Chris down here and myself, there was over 1,000 when we were here.
The 70s were peak.
Yes.
In the late 70s.
Yeah.
Late
I
70s.
graduated in 74. I had 77 in my class.
I had 76 in mine.
And
92 years.
right, we was up,
I was 78. We were the first class to break 100. So that
Right.
was the peak.
what I'm getting
We're
at
like
is,
this
in that time
Late
period,
70s.
we was up over 1,200 kids.
Kindergarten classes were in the churches.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
And we looked into that as well. When we were
I just like
examining
to see
facilities.
those numbers. What I'm saying is we're looking at 5 years ago, 1,000 and now 1,700 or whatever. It's not quite the picture. You're gonna have to look over a wider range to see how it is, to see what that's really done to this area.
Right, yes. We do have all the numbers in the
I-
spreadsheet that goes back, from when we had 998 10 years ago, and now we're at 1,800.
Well, we've been looking back to 2009.
Yeah.
That's about as, but the.
Go way back because it's so much more drastic now. I don't know that I'm explaining it right,
Oh, yeah.
but it's so much more drastic right now.
Well, that's why I was
than it
telling
was
you.
over a 30-year
Yes.
period.
Correct.
That's why I was
Correct.
telling you, even in the 10-year period, the most recent 10-year period, the first years when the economy was bad and Carriage Trails was slow to ramp up, not so bad. We get, 30 some years, 20, it wasn't huge numbers. It wasn't until the last 5 years that it's become really consistent and very high numbers, with the exception of COVID last year.
I think your peaks in the 70s and stuff would indicate, we haven't got our newest census data back yet, but I'm sure it's going to continue on the same trend of an aging community for the boundaries of Bethel Township, not necessarily Carriage Trails, and longevity of ownership too. So that's the second thing. So you just have less kids from this group and you're getting all, that's what caused that decline in your 90s and 2000s before Carriage Trails ramped up. So, I mean, it's an easy trend to see of why it happened.
So one thing about the aging though is that eventually those houses will turn over.
Eventually they will, and then you'll be back up to what
And
you
then we'll
were.
have another late 70s kind of
Correct.
thing just on the township.
So that's something,
Plus the houses that are. being
yeah,
built.
so that's something you'll have to consider as well with your future growth plan.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for taking public commentary, because it's not on the agenda. Respectful reminder, this is Bethel Township, not Huber Heights. I spent 33 of 35 years teaching Huber Heights schools. There's nothing wrong with Huber Heights schools. There's nothing wrong with students going to Huber Heights schools.
Yep, agreed.
Now, I just wanted to make a couple clarifications. One, when you say the these 5 can stop this. We cannot. I think that you heard there's a checklist to redistrict. So if you review that checklist, which we have, they're not, the students are not going to leave that we already have because of the reasons on the checklist. So we cannot stop that based on redistricting. And it's very rare that the state redistricts, very, very rare. And another thing is, I just wanted to point out that Debbie had asked about the money, if it's, because we would lose the TIF money. So just one thing to keep in mind is, not only would we lose the TIF money, but we'd also lose the students that we would have to support with that money. So, you got to put the two together when you talk about losing the money, because we would need the money, right, if we don't have the students.
I have one last question on redistricting, since you brought that back up. And it's something that I don't, you look at your school board rules and I try and look at township rules, so I don't usually cross too much. How is that done? I mean, is there an initiation process? Does someone initiate that, or
Be a petition in the state of Ohio and our Department of
from?
the school that school wants it.
Okay, from the school. Gotcha. I just wondered. Thank you.
Julie, you're right, you guys can't stop it, but you've been to a couple of those meetings. The 5 of you being there and saying what you can say. Beth said enough. I said almost nothing. Beth talked a bunch. Other township residents did. And out of that, we got Richard Shaw to make a motion. We got Glenn Otto to second it, and we got one other guy. And that was so close. If they would have rescinded their right or their deal to provide services, that would have marked number 6 and number 7 out of the annexation rules, whatever you want to call it, that our township trust or our county commissioners would have had the leverage to vote no. So if the 5 of you would have spoke the way Beth did and other people did, maybe we would have got those 2 other people. Because Don Webb is not, he don't seem to me that he's way out in left field. Don't know. Another, you know what I'm saying? It don't take that much more. There's power in numbers. You can't, any one of us can't stop it. That's the only reason we're here, is because we can't, the school board and the trustees can't. The school board, the trustees, a bunch of these residents, some people from Huber Heights saying build in the South, take care of what we already got instead of letting the whole South end go to hell.
Yeah.
I mean, heck,
Yeah.
and fix that place up
Fix up.
on that end, do some of their infrastructure work and leave us alone. If we had enough of those people, I always say it, we need 1,000 people there. We need every Huber Heights police officer there. We need the biggest traffic jam in the history of Huber Heights for that city council meeting.
So
That's
I
what
agree
we
with you.
need. We're down there totally by ourselves.
I agree with you that that could make some difference.
I need to shut up.
So let me just say though that I did go and speak, as you know, I made it very clear I was speaking for myself.
Yep.
There are people on the board and we all have individual opinions. We also have township and carriage trails. So Jacob speaks for us as the president. He speaks for us as a board. As an individual, I think what you're looking for is you want the people who are opposed to it to show up to the meetings. Right, but we cannot go and speak as board members and say, this is what we want. I'm a township member. I believe green, right? So I probably have a different opinion than some other people. And now we also have carriage trails people. Some of them don't want the new annexation either because, it's going to add more people. So, and the same reasons, the traffic, the schools, there's a lot of people. So, you have to get those people who are interested in speaking to speak, but we cannot go and speak as individuals, and nor would we want to, because as Jacob said, I wear a different hat here, right? We have to represent all of the students that we have.
And I think the biggest thing that of putting this forward, of why we wanted this meeting and everything else, is just to finalize a position from the board, one way or the other. I mean, that's what it really is.
Yeah.
So that we know where that position is and we know what's appropriate to say and what's not appropriate to say. That's where we're at. And I think that was the whole purpose
And if
of,
you write it, I'm happy to present it to them. If you don't feel comfortable going, that's fine, I can share it. But
you can say it. I remember when Danny moved here, I'll be honest, I remember his sister, she's better looking than him, was in my class. But I remember I've been here 13 years before they come here. We welcomed him, I believe. He can go and speak as a resident,
Yes.
Yes.
but there's really nothing wrong with you having something as a school board. Don't get yourself in a bunch of trouble and get people over in Columbus involved and all that, but yes, you can. And yes, Dan can, and yes, Lori can, and yes, you can. You know, because if you got right down to it, maybe you're going to tell me I can't go. Okay, no, I can go.
You all
And
can't
you
go
can
at the
go.
same time though, and speak as trustees.
Huh?
You gotta stop doing that.
No, we
they
don't.
didn't speak as trustees. They mentioned that they were a trustee.
right,
They could go to another meeting, all three of them, as long as they do not discuss amongst themselves township business or take a vote
Or take action.
or take action. They are allowed to go.
and we didn't sit next to each other.
Yeah, that, you are allowed to go.
Well, that's a whole separate point. We're not trying to muddy the water.
Yeah,
But whatever it is, we're taking a stand for Bethel Township.
And I understand.
We would like you.
Even
to
if you
take
could,
a
and your board
stand.
policy says that's what Jacob does, then that's what Jacob does, and that's fine. I'm okay with however that works out. And once again, just trying to kind of finalize everything here for us. That's all we're looking for is where you guys are at, and we're fine with however that is. And
I
then
think he told you early on what some of the concerns are, and then
Correct.
we're working on a resolution for that.
Correct.
Yeah, perfect, we're good, it's good.
We're working to pass a resolution with regards to our issues with the annexation.
Absolutely.
For the county to send to the trustees and the county commissioners.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
And
That
when
is
is that?
fantastic.
When will you do that?
25th.
No, we're gonna
The 18th?
potentially have to call another special meeting, but it depends on what happens after our conversation with item B on the agenda.
Okay,
So you, earlier, I thought I understood you say you're gonna have a resolution before the county commissioners meet.
Before the
Yes.
26th, yes.
So when will you do that?
So we have one that we tabled from our last board meeting that we have to address here. If it's pulled from the table. Well, we have to address the resolution that we already had pre-written. As we reviewed that at our last board meeting, it doesn't truly hit the requirements that we wanted added into it. So we have to, since we tabled it, we do have to address it now. But Monday, we'll be provided more information from our attorney based on the other elements we want added to the resolution. So it clearly articulates our issues. This one doesn't.
Will you have that at a meeting?
So we will
Monday.
potentially have a special meeting prior to theirs, prior to the 26th, to vote on a resolution with regards to the annexation. But that resolution, we
But you
want to
won't tell us
include,
when it is, so we can come.
I don't know when
They
it's
don't
gonna
know.
be.
They don't know.
We're meeting on Monday, we don't know when it's gonna be done, so it could be Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. But
Guidance from our attorney before we can.
Okay.
that's it, that's our issue, is we gotta wait.
Yeah.
We tried to jump ahead and send all our stuff to him, to ask for changes to be made, and so he has held us to Monday to work those changes. So once we have it, then we can have a special meeting to review and discuss as a board and then vote.
Fantastic.
So I would forecast that there will be a special meeting next week with regards to voting on a resolution.
Yeah, he didn't have to say.
Oh, sorry. Go.
Well, maybe a little past, but I'll say something that it's not gonna surprise anyone, but I know those people down there very well, and when it comes to speaking out against it, you don't necessarily have to do that. The greatest fear that most people have on the dais is a room full of people, because I've yet to see that resident come in and go, I signed up to speak tonight just to tell you guys you're doing an amazing job.
I know that.
So there's another new thing coming up on the second, we have meetings between now and then, and people are terrified. We have a full slate of opposition to 5 seats on that council. And just people in the room wearing something that says Bethel, bees, something to identify. You don't have to say anything. If 30 people show up and 2 people talk, everyone's listening. So just to keep that in mind.
So we did request a meeting with the council.
Yeah, and I was fully behind that. As a matter of fact, the whole body of council requested that meeting as well. And then our mayor decided he didn't want to have it.
Correct. We got the declination to have the meeting.
Yeah,
with
so
the
we-
city.
Though he doesn't have that ability. So that's what we're doing.
You gotta have him where he can't sleep at night.
Well, my question, if you don't, because I'm not that familiar with the mayor of Huber Heights, but does he have, or she, I know it's a he, does he have affiliation with Huber Heights City Schools?
He's a teacher at the schools and so is his wife.
He was my student.
She's a counselor.
So it's your fault.
Yeah, it's fine.
I was just curious.
Teaches government, doesn't
Unfortunately.
he?
Of course he
It's
does.
government according to Jeff Gore. It's not the United States government.
So I would like to, say, we are a partner with the township. We would love to have more meetings with the township so that we could focus on how we're moving forward together. On any of the projects, anything that's up and coming for the township. We would like to have township meeting or have the township trustees and the county commissioners, every couple months or
Like
every
a
quarter,
the quarterly meetings, I think would be fantastic.
so that we could all kind of sync what's happening in the district, the township, and from the county's perspective as well. Because then we can hear all issues and they can hear from us on a regular basis.
And in all fairness, we had started those talks before COVID hit about
Yes.
trying to do that.
And
We
we
can take
did
it,
them
we
in the
also would
past.
want to include the necessary Huber Heights ward reps and at-large reps, right? It wasn't
Sure.
just because we all need to
Community
communicate
rep.
to each other.
Community.
so I just sometimes, because this is a township meeting, we think township, but the school isn't just the township anymore. So the goal back however many years ago we discussed it was to include all the entities.
All the entities that are affected, that surround us, that have impact to it. Just to have those meetings, just so that we have that open dialogue and we know everybody. And we're all not trying to do things in different directions as well, from that for each other. As in, township levy, propositions, the issues, as well as school issues, as we go to move forward so that we can work together. And I think that's very important.
I mean, one more thing, Shane, you said something earlier that I think hit the nail right on the head. You mentioned something about not having proper infrastructure into place prior to it.
Mhm.
I'm here because I think this annexation hurts both of us, because we are not prepared for more growth. We've had more water main breaks this year than we've had in any 4 or 5 years combined. Our streets need a ton of work. We have a lot of infrastructure to take care of. We can't handle additional as well. So I'm here because I think it's going to be detrimental to all of us. And that's why I'm hoping that you guys will push back as well. I mean, I'm not here just to make all the Bethel people happy, though. I'm happy I am, but that's not the point.
You have other
The
issues.
concern about Huber Heights is what we're growing far too fast, and we can't handle that growth, regardless of what some think. We're falling down trying.
I think it's not, that thought process isn't slowing down the growth that Huber Heights is trying to gain. Because it's not just here, it's Clark County. I mean, they're growing like crazy, trying to take up multiple properties all around the city. So,
Can I say something real quick? I've been talking as a resident and everything, but as a staff member here, I know some of the students who live in Parktown and Carriage Trails, but I don't know all of them. You just hear things from them saying, well, I live here and there. And to me, that doesn't matter. They're here at Bethel now. They're our Bethel kids. You know, I don't treat them any differently. You know, there's no distinction for me. They're Bethel kids and I'm here to work with them and do my best for them. So, you know, that's not the issue. It's just the rapid development and the rapid growth. It sounds like even Huber Heights, thank you for sharing that. It sounds like even Huber Heights isn't ready to handle all this rapid growth because, okay, I've lived here all my life and it seems like the Huber motto is grow and then decay. So grow some more, decay, grow some more, decay, and there's all this decay. You know, I used to go to that shopping center down there and they've refurbished it some where drug council used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's looking a little bit nicer, but I don't go there anymore. You know, but at least, you know, they're trying, but yeah, it's just, I'm gonna shut up now, but yeah, it's just too much, too fast. And so thank you for listening.
Jacob, I do have one other comment or thought. There is kind of an optimal time for some of this growth to happen because the state, the OFCC bases its number on actual development, right? So they're going to redo our numbers again in 6 to 8 years.
When we go into it,
When we go into the OFCC project. So, and then I think once completed, we have a 10-year window after that where we could contest results. But there is an optimal time in there because let's face it, we're getting a very generous 80% match from the state where it would be nice to know if we're going to have more development to do it in that window so the burden of the tax is somewhere else. It's just a thought.
Okay.
Yeah, growth is going to happen, but it just needs to be, I think, reined in a little bit. It doesn't have to be swallowing everything whole. It just, yeah. I realize that, you know.
I agree until we put a lot of time into figures that the OFCC wouldn't even recognize because it wasn't planned. So we knew even planning this building, potentially we'd be at capacity by the time we could build the next project. And I don't know how any school gets around that. I mean, other schools have it happen too. At Columbus, the ones that are growing, and I think there's one down in Cincinnati. But yeah, it'd be nice if we had it'd be nice if we had a 5-year window where we could prepare for this because it takes 2 to really 3 years to build a building until you get the planning done and start construction. So I don't know what the answers are. I'm just telling you my perspective.
Right. Okay.
Good, I'm thinking, it's great.
Thanks for letting us talk.
Yes, thank you.
We appreciate the opportunity. And, you know, we just still like to throw out there, if there's future roadwork projects with regards to Ag and Broad, please talk with us because we need better infrastructure on Ag and Broad.
By the way, I did talk to ODOT about the intersection of Carriage Trails Parkway and 201. And her response was, we're waiting on Huber Heights. So they know what the next step is. So get with them. So
we've seen controversy. Huber Heights was going to put in I believe a signal or something. They were going to do something to change that intersection. But ODOT shut them down and said that they don't have control of that space.
And they don't, but they're waiting on the input from Huber Heights. I think you guys are supposed to do a traffic study or something.
Yeah, we had discussed, we did one years back, but they wanted a new one study. So this has been volleyed a couple of times now, and it gets discussed for a while and then
drops
and fade away. Yeah, I think the last time was, I spoke with Lori and then I got something initiated for the last discussion and it looked like something might happen and then it just kind of faded off.
Well, and it wasn't just that. ODOT said, sorry, cannot do. So, I mean, we were city council all voted for it, but it wasn't in their jurisdiction. I believe, I could be wrong.
We had no formal votes on.
But yeah, the rep with ODOT said it doesn't qualify. So now I do know I do need to talk with my contact at ODOT. I do know they were doing studies at US 40 and 201 and US 40 and 202. I have not had contact with Ben Wolfeis in probably 6 months because summer is their busy time, but I will try to follow up with him in the next month or two and see where things stand.
I wasn't planning on talking about this, but since we're talking traffic. What is the plan out here on 201, getting in and out of the school? I have had a couple of residents asking me what we could do about helping with that. It's getting pretty aggressive out there.
We currently have a $300,000 allotment in our master facilities plan to assist with road widening of the new school building. But as far as the existing 201 right out here,
Yeah.
we don't have anything in our current plans to address that. So if you guys would be willing to help, that would be amazing.
You know, we brought sewer to you in 2015. So that was our $378,000 contribution to you guys, because great schools equal great communities. So we're happy to talk. We can partner with you. Debbie's our fiscal officer. She keeps really tight rein on us, but if you guys want to keep that, have a budget and a line item and figure out exactly how much it is, we'd be happy to discuss contributing to it.
Yeah, and Jacob, there will be an additional turn lane, I believe, when the new elementary is built, so that, but I don't know if that will help or hinder traffic, who knows?
Well, it should separate some of our traffic. The idea is to separate some of the traffic from the elementary and middle school, high school, and then events.
Yeah,
So with the new facility, there'll be its own turn lane, its own drive.
nice.
And we tried to plan in enough space for vehicles to sit, not impacting the roadway
I think,
when pick up and drop off.
I'm not sure about this,
Crazy.
but
Yeah.
last year when I would come here about 7:15, it was fine. I had no problem. Even sometimes when I was late, 7:20, 7:25, I had no problem getting in and parking. If I'm not here by 7:10, I have to wait out there in the turn lane to get into the parking lot. And I think it's because there are more parent drop-offs and pickups, because they don't want their children riding the bus wearing a mask, or for whatever other reason. But that's the only thing I can think of that's different from this year to last year.
COVID has a significant
Yes.
impact on
Yeah.
the number of riders on a bus versus personal vehicles.
Yeah, and it's definitely worse this year than it was last year. I mean, I don't remember it being like this last year.
Well, the biggest change between last year and this year was the federal mandate that require masks on bus.
Yes. Yeah, so I think that's what's done.
I'm sorry.
I'm finished.
The south end, as you're coming from the south, the school sign that's painted on the road is way back. And then the flashing light, I don't know that that's ever been moved back from the addition, of kind of moving that direction and all a little bit.
Which side are you talking about?
Coming
On
from
the south side,
So yes, normal school markings based on ODOT requirements is you have the school line, and then so many feet from that is where the flashing light is.
and
But it
I'm
starts at
asking
one.
for a resident, okay, maybe I could go ask somebody else, but I'm asking. Where are you supposed to be at 20 miles per hour?
At the white line.
At the first one.
Yes, sir.
But what they're finding is, and I mean, I've experienced it a little bit, but things don't bother me as bad. If you slow down to 20 at that sign, you got people waving different than I was brought up to wave and laying on the horn. I had a guy, because I dropped off my granddaughter or something the other day, and I had a semi. I mean, he was so close, you couldn't read anything. And that was fine with me. I ended up about 6 miles an hour for it. I never, a fight don't bother me. But anyway, it's pretty aggressive out there. Is the school resource officer allowed to kind of?
We have sheriff vehicles out there frequently. They park right out here and out here.
We asked the sheriff to be the one, the extra one that we get. We asked.
But that's what I was thinking, between the sheriff and the resource officer, we can kind of, I guess what I'm saying is the traffic's one thing, but there seems to be a little bit of aggressiveness.
I would say on a 5-day school week, we probably have a patrolman, I should say, patrolman, a deputy out there for 4 out of 5 days a week.
Wow. He's always.
And yet-
Come on.
And yet, I still see several cars driving way too fast during the flashing light
So
time.
because we all put this out as a special meeting to discuss annexation.
Yeah, that's getting
we
off
can
track.
focus on annexation.
Sorry.
So John,
We're doing pretty good for having stayed on track, haven't we?
You
okay,
started talking about traffic.
yeah, sorry, as it related to annexation.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other?
We'll host the next meeting, the next quarterly meeting. We are all in agreement that we'll do this quarterly, even twice a year would be great. We don't have to just talk about annexation. We can just talk
Open
about,
up to everything.
you know, kind of popcorn they're serving in the concession stand or whatever.
Is this a good time, 4:30?
On Friday?
On Fridays.
Oh, right, yeah.
On
Not
Friday.
on Friday.
Next one is we may have a new
I don't
board.
have a lot.
Yeah, we'll have the new board in place by then.
Well, we'll work, but
Yeah, we'll.
we'll work on a
So
time frame.
that'll see who's available when,
Yeah.
so we'll figure it out.
We just tried to lock in a quick,
Right.
as soon as we could
We
get
know, and
together.
we appreciate it. Carolyn's out of town. She couldn't.
Thank
make
you.
it, so, But yes, thank you.
All right,
All right, thank you all very much.
thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Moving along our agenda then, we have item B. That was take from the table, review and approve the board resolution to support Bethel Township against annexation.
So before we do this, if we don't have the information from the attorney, I believe if we just leave it on the table, it just goes away and we can reintroduce it later. So if we do nothing at all, it just dies. That's my understanding.
It's my understanding that since we took it and placed it on the table, that we must address it at our next meeting, that it has to be addressed.
But we can,
But if we want to let it die, I think we just let it die and stay on the table. It
We
doesn't
can-
have to be addressed.
we can make a motion to act on it and then nobody seconds it, it goes away.
Yes, so we have to do something,
Okay.
right? So that would mean that it would die from a lack of a second.
Okay, I'll move.
All right, Lori made the motion
Pressure's on.
to take the table, review and approve the board resolution. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Ask one more time, it's getting close.
Here, yeah. Hearing that there is no second, the motion dies due to a lack of a second. Which then would relate the item C on our agenda, if not needed.
It's only if we vote from the table, if it passes, so it didn't pass, so we don't have to worry about that one.
Right, and then is there a reason to go into executive session for annexation? Hearing none. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Thank you, Lida, for the motion. Thank you, Julie, for the second discussion. I think before we close, to reiterate, I assume the reason that there wasn't a second on that specific resolution is because it does not include all of the items that we think are appropriate to be added,
Gotcha.
than what's in it.
We're
Gotcha.
good.
We're good.
More to come. Any other discussion? Last piece I would say is thank you all for coming. We appreciate you coming in and we appreciate the opportunity to work with you as well.
Great. Thank you.
Ms. Harriman, could you call the vote?
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian.
Yes.
Mr. Elam.
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield. Yes.
All right, meeting adjourned at 6:02 p.m. Thank you all.
Yeah, directly over here.
Yes.
Thanks for all the work you done out there. Appreciate it.